Welcome back to Up Close. We've been in recession since February. So what now? 45 million Americans have lost their jobs since mid-March, and a couple million have regained their jobs. But how do we get there? How did we get there, and how do we get ahead with businesses and citizens and some in government worried about a resurgence of the current virus wave and a second one perhaps in the future? So many Americans about to lose next month an extra $600 a week in stimulus giveaways. Joining us, Congressman Frank Pallone of New Jersey. Congressman, welcome to Up Close again. How you feeling? You okay?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just in my house in New Jersey. But, you know, we work all day long and even into the evening with the committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee that I chair, and, you know, having hearings and markups and putting forward legislation. So it's busy. So
let's talk about commerce, since you talk about business, and we're in New York about to roll out phase 2. You've been in New Jersey for a week or so. Are you worried? This economy has taken a huge hit. We're in a recession, have been since February officially. How long before we get back to normal? Could it be, some estimates say, a couple years?
Well, I think the key is whether or not the virus comes back, and that's why it's very important. You know, I do commend both your governor, New York Governor Cuomo, and Governor Murphy here in New Jersey for, you know, closing down, having stay-at-home orders, and now they're gradually phasing that, you know, doing the reopening again, but they're doing it slowly, which I think is important, because if you noticed in a lot of the states in the South and Southwest, where they either didn't close or they reopened very quickly, we're seeing huge spikes in the numbers now. I heard that I think California and Florida had the highest numbers this week of new cases that they've had since the virus began. So it's really important to take it slow. Florida and Texas and Arizona, and it's very, very worrisome. Let's talk about finances, since you're on the Commerce Committee. Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell this week said it would behoove this country to not let this $600 a week stimulus extra payment to laid-off workers, fired workers, people who've lost their jobs, expire at the end of July. It may not be $600 a week, but it has to be something, he says. Otherwise, we fall deeper into recession. What do you think about that, and what's the solution? Well, he's absolutely right. And as you know, the House Democrats, the House passed a bill called the HEROES Act, which continues a lot of these things. It continues the $600 extra unemployment till the end of the year. It has another cash payment of $1,200, $500 for kids. It gives money to the states so that they don't have to lay people off. I mean, all these things need to continue, but I think the most important thing that comes under our committee is the testing. In other words, you know, we know that we need to have an expanded capacity for testing, because people really can't go back to work unless we test a lot more people. And there should be a national strategy for that, which again is in the HEROES Act that our committee put in, but the president has resisted. And of course, McConnell doesn't even want to take up the HEROES Act at all in the Senate. So, you know, this attitude, which is that this is over, is very wrong and could easily lead to another spike and a huge recurrence in the fall or even sooner. Also sitting in the Senate is a bill from your Congress that you passed, a $4 trillion act or something, that for a stimulus act that includes repealing the elimination of deductions for state and local income and real estate taxes, which hit your constituents very hard in New Jersey and in New York and Connecticut and throughout the Northeast and California as well, where you can only deduct $10,000 of all your property taxes and state income taxes. And that bill just sits waiting for a discussion at least, and it's not happening. Right. And Bill, it actually is the same bill. I just didn't mention the HEROES Act. Yeah. That's the HEROES Act, but it includes SALT. Well. Yeah. So what do you think about that? I mean, absolutely. A lot of you have campaigned on trying to repeal these deduction eliminations. Right, and that's why it's in the HEROES Act, because it's also very important in terms of, you know, again, this is all, in my opinion, a stimulus. It puts, you know, more money in people's pockets who need it. I should also mention, Bill, that at the end of this month we are going to do a infrastructure bill. One of the best ways to create jobs and stimulate the economy is have a major infrastructure bill. You know, roads, highways, more broadband connections. In our committee, it's broadband connections. It's a safe drinking water initiative. It's upgrading electricity grid, hospital construction, community health. Tunnels under the Hudson River? Yep, Gateway would certainly be part of that as well. And so this is all an effort really by the Democrats to create jobs and bring things back, but in a safe way. But again, it's being held up by McConnell, the majority leader, and the president hasn't said that he supports it. But we just hope that they change their mind. A lot of states that are Republican, we call them red states, they have these revenue losses as well. So this isn't a Democratic issue, but so far McConnell and Trump don't support these initiatives.
Your opinion about the president and how he has done both with the COVID-19 crisis and the questions of race and racial relations and police reform. The New York Times ran a story this last week, said the president seems to be self-sabotaging how he handled the virus, ignoring it at first, saying it was no big deal, and then the George Floyd police killing.
Well, we have a bill called the Justice and Policing Act, which is basically the House Democrats' response, and it's also in the Senate with Senator Booker. It came from the Congressional Black Caucus in the House, and that's going to be moved the end of next week. And this is basically seeks to address, the racial inequalities in the way in policing. So it basically says that tries to remove undue force, has training for police, prohibits profiling. Has a list, a registry of police that have used undue force so they don't get hired again. It says that choking is prohibited. It also requires cameras, that be used by the police. A number of initiatives, including the chokeholds that you mentioned, that are part of this. And it'll pass the House at the end of next week. And I just hope, again, that McConnell takes it up and it gets to pass the Senate and the president ultimately signs the bill, because we know, and it's not just policing. We need criminal justice reform. The prisons are a huge problem. The prisons have been a center for a lot of the spread of the COVID virus, and we need to address the problems in prisons as well.
Okay. U.S. Congressman Frank Pallone from New Jersey, thanks for coming on up close again and making your case, Congressman. Good to see you.
You're getting a haircut, I understand?
I am getting a haircut on Monday. I'm not announcing it on this show until later.
I worked very hard, Bill, to get this hair.
It looks really good.
It wasn't sticking out. And Monday is the first day you can get a haircut in New Jersey, too, so I'll get one, too.
I'm going to the Bronx tomorrow on Monday, and I'm getting a haircut from a shop where I have not had a haircut before, but I want to support this little shop. But we'll do a story on it tomorrow. Congressman, thank you very much.